welcome to the Republic of Middle-Aged Men. As usual, you have your three hosts. You have myself, Tim. Hi. You have Lachlan.
Howdy.
And Ruben.
Hey.
Gentlemen, I have a magnificent cup here from my favourite pub called Valhalla from up at Port Stephens, New South Wales. It holds a pint and it contains a pint of Italian beer, and it is delicioso. What are you drinking tonight, Lachlan?
Well, I also have a large beverage, but it's full of Kraken and ginger beer, so that is my beverage of choice for this evening.
The Ginger Kraken.
That's it.
Nice. Red-headed pirate. How about you, Ribs? What do you got?
White Russian for me.
Yes. I had one of those yesterday and on Friday. They're a good drink. It's always a nice day for White Russian, as they say.
Also known as a Caucasian.
That's it.
Bodice. All right. Let's not hesitate. Let's go to meditations. So we are... I can't quite remember what chapter we're in. Is it 3?
Yeah,
Book 3.
Yep.
Part 8. Let's go. In the mind of one who is chastised and purified, you will find no corrupt matter, nor impurity, nor any sore-skinned over. Nor is his life incomplete when fate overtakes him, as one may say of an actor who leaves the stage before ending and finishing the play. Besides, there is in him nothing servile, nor affected, nor too closely bound to other things, nor yet detached from other things, nothing worthy of blame, nothing which seeks a hiding place. Nice.
Nice and simple to get us back into it. Pretty to the point. I don't think there's too much interpretation needed on that one, to be honest.
Interesting. Nor any sore-skinned over.
Does that just mean like you're like facing up to whatever is leading, and you're not covering it for your own ego or something like that? It's just taking things as it is, warts and all, so to speak.
I thought it was going to be like the Mount Druitt version is like there's no scabs.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah. What do you think about the part, nor is his life incomplete when fate overtakes him, as one may say of an actor who leaves the stage before ending and finishing the play? Is that like a way of saying if he checks out early, he actually didn't check out early, it's when he was meant to?
I thought they're saying maybe that like it's like you're not missing something by having lived the chastened and purified life, I suppose. So it's not like you're exiting without having experienced all the world has to offer. I think it's just saying, maybe you're satisfied, and that's an okay thing.
Yep.
My reading of that is that like an actor plays even if they play a small role in a play and then they leave, you wouldn't say that was incomplete. Like they've done what they were supposed to do.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Nice. Look, I'm happy with that. I think we can play on.
Yeah.
So let's go to number 9. Revere the faculty which produces opinion. On this faculty, it entirely depends whether there shall exist in your ruling part any opinion inconsistent with nature and the constitution of the rational animal. And this faculty promises freedom from hasty judgment, and friendship towards men, and obedience to the gods. How does one revere one's faculty?
Well, my book says revere the power of judgment, which is much simpler. Revere your power of judgment.
Yeah.
Although, I think your one's a little bit more specific as to what it's talking about when it's talking about forming opinion.
Right. Yeah, because you're using a different translation, aren't you?
Yeah. Unintentionally, I thought I got the same one. And then I bought an electronic copy thinking I was getting the same one, and it was the same is also not the same one. So
It was the same, different.
I gave up and just used this one.
It's good though
Fair
because sometimes it does shine a bit more light on the topic. Just getting some slightly different phrasings is no bad thing. No bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Okay. So on this faculty, it entirely depends whether there shall exist in your ruling part any opinion inconsistent with nature and the constitution of the rational animal. Here we are again with the is it in accordance with nature idea.
Oh yeah.
I'm finding that idea more and more compelling. And I think it's an idea that is so foreign to our common way of thinking that when I think about something I want to argue with someone, if you can find a way to bring that it's not in accordance with nature into the conversation, people aren't used to that idea. And it's a really good way to sort of throw in a curveball when you're having a debate with somebody about something that, well, that's not in accordance with nature, so it can't be a good thing. Like, what? People aren't used to hearing that. So, have you guys tried that out before when you've had a debate about something?
I have not.
Yes, but not in that fashion. I find that's exactly where disagreement naturally lead you. Like I find almost every debate or discussion I have over, well, particularly when it comes to questions of morality, they always seem to break down into that particular difficulty.
Oh, well, I recommend it. I think it's a really interesting way to frame an argument.
Well, I think it's at least going to put someone on the back step to sort of think about it for a moment. I mean, they may still argue the toss, but it does reframe it and gives them another chance to, judge that sort of opinion once again. Interesting. I thought, did your translation as well, Ruben, use the word opinion? Like, as I always felt like that was a dirty word after reading all the Epictetus sort of stuff. So,
What does yours say, Rubes?
Doesn't use the word opinion at all.
Yeah. So what was yours? Revere the faculty which produces opinion was our first line.
And this one is revere your power of judgment.
Yeah, judgment I think sounds like a better word. I mean, because it sort of implies that you've thought about it, whereas opinions don't always imply thought.
What was
how does a judgment differ from an opinion?
In my opinion, it feels like I don't know. I think judgment implies that there's been rationality applied to the decision or the thought process. It might not be right. I mean, you could still do that, and it's still an opinion at the end of the day, right? But
there has to be a difference in those two words, though, surely.
Well, judgment feels like there's facts to evaluate, whereas opinion can be based on nothing but your feeling. I don't know.
That's not necessarily true. I mean, if you're driving and you make a bad decision, then you've had a poor choice of judgment. But
that's not. You wouldn't use the word opinion to describe that, would you?
Correct. No, because you've taken something into account and then made a decision.
But judgment
doesn't. That's right. But does an opinion mean you haven't taken something into account? Is it like more presumptive?
That's what it feels like.
I think we use, I'm just going out on a limb here, I don't really know. I think we use opinion when it applies to something that doesn't have a right or wrong answer. So, like, I like rock music. My opinion is that rock music is good. There's no real right or, like, it's. I think we use opinion when we're talking about the subjective, and we would use judgment when we're talking about the objective. I think that's the difference.
I think you might be right. We need to get Spencer Clavin on the speed dial so he can do some analysis of language for us.
Well, I've decided to cheat.
Here we go.
And we'll see how we go. I've asked Perplexity, what is the difference between a judgment and an opinion? So it says, and you may be onto something, Lachlan, Judgment is a reasoned opinion presented as a fact, often with an implication of authority or finality. It involves assessing evidence and making a critical decision, often perceived as definite and public. Judgments are typically tied to core beliefs and are less open to change or discussion. Opinion, on the other hand, is a personal view based on an individual's experiences and preferences. It is subjective, fluid, and open to discussion or change as new information is encountered. Opinions do not necessarily rely on facts and are considered private.
Yeah, if they're considered private, but up until that point, because usually they say, "Was it like opinions are like assholes? Everyone's got one."
Yeah, but you also hear they're saying keep your opinion to yourself.
True.
So maybe say they should be private.
Maybe that's
keep them to yourself. Yeah. No, but that was helpful. So, which one do we think's right? Do we think it's talking about judgment, or do we think it's talking about opinion?
I think judgment, because they're saying like revere the faculty, and you wouldn't revere the faculty where you just flip stuff out. You know, like I love Taylor Swift today. You know, like you want to weigh that up a little bit more and really think about that before you.
Yeah, I don't know if we can be friends anymore.
Yeah.
No, joking.
I think hypothetical, okay, before we get chucked out.
Yeah, okay. All right. We know your ringtone's Tay-Tay. It's all good. No, joking.
Just shake it off to you.
What was the last line in your paragraph again?
In the paragraph.
Yeah.
And this faculty promises freedom. You go, Lachlan, you do it.
That's right. And this faculty promises freedom from hasty judgment and friendship towards men and obedience to the gods.
See, that's different. Mine is, I guess it's not that different. And this state guarantees deliberate thought, affinity with other men, and obedience to the gods. But I think when you end on the obedience to the gods, that's like an appeal to a higher authority. In which case, that would probably lend me more towards judgment being a better way to frame it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's quite funny though that they threw judgment into ours in that final paragraph,
but not in the first.
Not the first one. Yeah.
It has to be a translation issue where they could go either way, so they've tried to get a blend of the two words to make it make sense. That's okay.
Yeah, I think the basic meaning's the same between the two translations, really.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting that the faculty which helps you make good judgments also helps you have friendship and obedience to the gods. Like, that's 2 points that I think that's true. I think people who are wise in their decision making are wise in friendships.
Well, I think anytime you're in a place where you avoid jumping to conclusions without rational thought, you wind up in trouble.
Someone's got some VTEC on your street.
Yeah.
Heard that. Sorry, go again, because you're drowned out by that Honda goodness.
Someone's mowing the lawn. Yeah, so I think, anytime you're sort of jumping to conclusions without employing some thought and rationality to it, you're going to wind up in trouble with your friendships, whether it's big or little. So that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, it depends on your friends. They might just be used to you throwing out quick fire, shooting from the hip opinions and hot takes. So
hot take. There's a phrase I need to bring back.
That's it.
Hot take. Tay-Tay. No. All right, let's move on. Let's go to number 10. Throwing away, then, all things, hold to these only, which are few, and besides, bear in mind that every man lives only this present time, which is an indivisible point, and that all the rest of his life is either past or it is uncertain. Short, then, is the time which every man lives, and small the nook of the earth where he lives, and short, too, the longest, I don't know how to say that word, posthumous fame? Posthumous, thank you.
Yep.
Even this only continues through a succession of poor human beings who will very soon die, and who do not even know themselves, much less one who died long ago. And the Sesame Street word of the day is posthumous. So what are the things? Let's list them off on our fingers if we can. So the first thing is, bear in mind that every man lives only at this present time, which is an indivisible point, and that all the rest of his life is either past or it is uncertain. Let's start with that. So is that basically just saying live in the moment?
Yeah, it's saying time is short. You don't know when your time's up. And the memory of you will fade. That's what I'm getting out of it.
I think it's kind of almost saying like that the here and the now is constantly passing, and so like whatever it is that you're wanting to do, if you're not doing it, it's already passing you by. So the same thing as what Rubes is saying, but it's just an interesting way I think to sort of put it. Everything in your life has either already happened or you don't know what's going to happen. Like it might be long, it might be short, but you've got right now. Right now is right in front of you. So, what do you want to do with it?
It also zooms out a bit. It feels a bit like a prelude to the small blue dot speech. Like you're in a very small part of the land here. Interesting. Is there anything in your translation, Ruben, that stands out that's different?
Oh, I think the whole paragraph sounds better.
Oh, do tell. Pray do tell.
So discard all else and secure these things only. Remind yourself too that each of us lives only in the present moment, a mere fragment of time. The rest is life past or uncertain future. Sure, life is a small thing, the small cranny of the earth in which we live it. Small too even the longest fame thereafter, which is itself subject to a succession of little men who will quickly die, and we have no knowledge even of themselves, let alone of those long dead.
Dang, that's much more punchy.
I like it.
Yeah, it feels a bit darker, doesn't it? The older English. I must just have like an older translation or something.
Little men who don't know themselves and don't know history.
Yeah, basically.
It's pretty cool.
I like the that each of us lives only in the present moment, a mere fragment of time. It's a good line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is very good.
But yeah, I think you're right, Lachlan. Basically, stay in the moment. The rest is, uncertain and time past.
Yeah, uncertain or done.
And again, pretty cool that that's coming from an emperor of Rome.
For sure.
Yeah, I know when he's talking about the longest, small too, even is the longest fame thereafter. Yeah, well, okay, we're reading your book 2,000 years later, so maybe you weren't quite on point with that one.
True. But he didn't know we'd be reading it, so...
Yeah, there is that. But
otherwise, he might
that,
not have written
if
it so well.
If you were to live as if, you think people are going to respect your opinions in 2,000 years' time, that would be extraordinary arrogance, wouldn't it?
Well, I think there was a passage we were reading in the last one, and I can't remember, but it was something like he was like rattling off the names of, I think, some of the previous emperors. And he makes kind of a fair point because, like, a lot of them, like, you might be familiar with the name, but you don't actually necessarily know what they did. I mean, Aurelius, but some of the others maybe aren't as memorable unless you are a true student of history. But he still makes a good point as always.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep on chugging on. So up to 11. This is a bit of a long one. To the aids which have been mentioned, let this one be added. Make for yourself a definition or description of the thing which is presented to you, so as to see distinctly what kind of a thing it is in its substance, in its nakedness, in its entirety, and tell yourself its proper name, and the names of the things of which it has been compounded, and into which it will be resolved. For nothing so produces elevation of mind as to be able to examine methodically and truly every object which is presented to you in life, and always look at things so as to see at the same time what kind of universe this is, and what kind of use everything performs in it, and what value everything has with reference to the whole, and what with reference to man, who is a citizen of the highest city, of which all other cities are like families, what each thing is, and of what it is composed, and how long it is the nature of the thing to endure, which makes now an impression on me, and what virtue I have need of with respect to it, such as gentleness, manliness, truth, fidelity, simplicity, contentment, and the rest. Hence, on every occasion a man should say, this comes from God, and this is according to the appointment and spinning of the thread of destiny, and such coincidence and chance, and this is from one of the same stock, and a kinsman and partner, one who knows not, however, what is according to his nature. But I know, and for this reason I behave towards him according to the natural law of fellowship with benevolence and justice. At the same time, however, in things indifferent, I attempt to ascertain the value of each. Dang! I don't know if we're going to be able to read anything else tonight. That's huge. Where do we begin? All right, so let's start back at the beginning of that. So, make for yourself a definition or description of the thing which is presented to you, so as to see distinctly what kind of a thing it is in its substance, its nakedness, and its entirety.
Yeah, mine says, see it stripped bare to its essential nature and identify it clearly. So I like that. What he's saying is make clear understanding of what it is you're looking at. What are you dealing with? Identify what it is. Understand its nature before you do anything. I think that's a skill. That's got to be a skill, and I think it takes you've really got to actually pay attention to it. You're not necessarily going to do it naturally, and it's also something that almost no one ever does. Like how often do people get in disagreements on the basis of equivocation or misunderstanding each other because they haven't taken the time to identify what it is that they're actually talking about?
Yeah, that's a good point. I find myself doing this a little bit more lately in relation to my pets. So I have chickens and I have a dog. My dog is a King Charles Cavalier cross poodle. It's an anxious dog that's also half King Charles Cavalier, which pretty much existed to hunt birds. And so if they're in the backyard at the same time, if I turn my back for just a moment, my dog is going to try and end one of those chickens. And it's tempting to think he's being naughty. But if I catch that thought, then I go, no, it's in accordance with his nature to hunt birds. That's a stupid thing for me to expect him not to do that. Because he's a King Charles Cavalier / poodle. He's always going to see a bird and go, that's what I'm made to kill. And he's going to go do it. And equally, my chickens, when they're laying eggs, they get noisy and they brood and they're a pest sometimes. But I find that if I start getting frustrated at them being noisy or brooding, I just remind myself they're chickens. This is in accordance with their nature. Deal with it. Like it's not their problem. It's my problem. So like that's one way that I use that sort of like what am I dealing with here? in its nature to do this thing that I'm finding annoying or frustrating. Therefore, it's my problem.
Yeah.
So, and now, like, I think I've been able to start extending that to my kids. Like, they're teenagers. One's a boy, one's a girl. They each have their own traits and things that they do. And there are moments where I remind myself, this behavior aligns with what they are in by nature. So don't get too frustrated. Have you guys ever used it in that way, or is this like a new idea to hear it discussed in this way?
I've not used it in that way. I think it's a pretty neat thing. It's obviously what I think he's trying to do is remind himself of that discipline, because it's probably something that's pretty easy to overlook in your day to day. So I think that's pretty neat that you have sort of applied
Yeah,
that kind
thanks.
of thought to him. I don't reckon it would generally, like, whilst I am someone who's pretty methodical and thoughtful about things sometimes, but I probably haven't applied that kind of matrix to it. So it's yeah, it's something I will think about.
I have found it helpful. How about you, Rubes? Have you thought about it in that way before? I feel like you would have, even if like not that
Well, my
formally.
reading of it goes back to what we were saying earlier about when you have a disagreement with someone, um, and how that plays out. And I find quite frequently it does come down to what is it that you're actually talking about. And once again, particularly when you're talking about moral differences, because you can actually stop and say, all right, what are we actually talking about here? Are we talking about a matter of opinion? Are we talking about a moral precept? And what's that based on? And when you break things down and you start to identify them properly there, it actually gets you to the point of disagreement a lot quicker.
Yep.
It'll get you to that. We're going to have to agree to disagree on X because there's, that it gets you to that spot a lot quicker.
So
Or it
that's
kind of pushes
interesting.
aside the other things that aren't actually that relevant or not really the core issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because people probably get caught up a lot talking about the stuff that's peripheral and not necessarily that main sort of point. So it might actually be a good way to think about it, to actually advance that argument to get to the meat and sort it
I,
out.
I think it is. And what I find that I'm asking people a lot, and I'm the only one I've ever heard ask this question, funnily enough, is are we talking about a difference in degree or a difference in kind?
Mm.
And people generally don't make that distinction. And I think that's part of what he's talking about is like, what do you actually, you've got to identify what we're talking about here. What is it? What is it actually? Identify the nature of what it is you're trying to understand.
So when you say, Ruben, that it leads to disagreement, do you mean that it leads to identifying what the disagreement is quickly, or do you mean that method generally exposes why the disagreement exists? Like, what is it?
I
Because
think
you could interpret like that what you said, that like that method leads to disagreement. I don't think it
it
leads to
does. No,
disagreement,
it
but it
does, but
leads.
in a more specific way. So, what here's the thing, right? When I find generally when you're talking about, I'm thinking specifically about moral disagreements, and earlier on we're talking about the nature of things. When you boil it down in this fashion and you start to talk about what it is we're actually talking about and the nature of a thing, inevitably the question is how do you identify the nature of a thing? And this is all part of what he's saying here, I reckon, in terms of identifying what it is. And then the next question from that is, well, is it the nature of a thing comes down to whether it's random or whether it's designed. Now, as soon as you hit that point, you're in the realm of presupposition. You're at the base. You're at the bottom. You're at the bottom level there. You know what I mean? Pretty much at the bottom level there. So by identifying what it is you're actually talking about, you automatically get there quicker. And when I say you find disagreement, that's where you find the fundamental disagreement between what you call a surface level
Yeah,
disagreement. I mean,
like the root cause of the disagreement.
yeah, like I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of a quick example, but the one that pops to mind is something like abortion. So I don't really want to discuss that. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, fair
Like,
enough. Yeah.
yeah, things like that. Yeah,
No, I hear you. So most people I've found in my experience don't even understand that deeper level of the argument exists. They don't understand there's a metaphysical conversation and a presuppositional conversation there. So, do you find
well,
that when you come through with that strategy, do they find it disorientating? I think I said that word
yes,
wrong. Yep.
a little bit, but what was I going to say? What he's talking about here in that first paragraph is essentially the um, arm of philosophy known as ontology, which is a fancy way of saying what is it.
Yep.
And then to answer your question, do people find it disorientating? I don't know about whether they find it disorientating, but I do find that you kind of hit a wall where you can't argue any further. You've just got at that point you've got to plant a seed, and it's essentially and the discussion is essentially here is a different way to look at reality, because at that point
Yep.
you're talking about reality.
Yeah. Okay. I'll follow.
I think we were sort of seeing this like when we were reading the Republic, right? And this was like Socrates when he's like arguing with somebody about a point, and they can see they're on like two different ends, and then he just keeps on sort of like drilling down to sort of try and get to the root cause. And what we always sort of seem to find with the way he was going down, it'd be like, actually, we agree on this, we agree, we agree, we agree, we agree, and then you hit the thing, like
Yeah,
the actual thing that's the cause of the disagreement. But it started out up the top here, and at a high level you're disagreeing, but you didn't actually know what it was, and it's only when you started to qualify it that you actually worked out, oh, what we're actually talking about is this thing here, and now we've defined it specifically. Oh, it's this particular thing.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, and
Well, that's the Socratic method, isn't it? I mean, like,
mm,
and that Plato's Republic, the whole it's in this
mm,
giant entire book, which is just trying to ask what actually is justice.
yeah,
You know, like,
Yeah. I will say that that's made me one hell of a good negotiator when you're having to deal with parties that have a quite a aggressive disagreement. It's a helpful mechanism to start with what we all agree with, and
mm,
then
oh
like
yeah,
drill down because it can make the problem seem not as big. So then people don't tend to clash so much because they realize there's a lot of commonality and there's just a specific little one or two things we need to address, and we may not necessarily agree on them. But when you start from a place of this is what all the things we agree with, then it sort of takes the heat out of the room. I've found,
yeah.
and I
Well,
used that
because at that
technique
point,
even as recently as last week.
yeah, when you start talking about abstract principles, you automatically remove it from attacking someone's opinion to something external to you. You discuss at that point you're discussing something external to both of you.
Yeah,
mm,
So I think you're right. I think that's how it works. I mean, I've actually had conversations with people that follow that path, and you get to the end of it. And I remember I've actually have had to say to people, well, I think what our disagreement is here is you're refusing to make distinctions. You think all of this is one thing, and I'm saying that you can make distinctions. If you're and I've actually said to Bill, if you're refusing to make those distinctions, I don't think this discussion can continue.
mm.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And they weren't upset with that.
yeah. There's
I
just
mean, their
no
response
further to
was
go.
like, but at that point, they just like their response was, "Well, I'm not an idiot." And I said, "I'm not saying you're an idiot. I'm telling you that I think you're refusing to make a certain type of distinction. I mean, you're entitled to do that, but I'm gonna have to disagree with you. You know what I mean?"
Well,
Yeah,
you're saying like everything with four legs is a table, and you're saying, well, no, I think there are some things that have four legs that aren't a table. So
Yeah,
let's be specific, you know.
yeah. It's almost like that. It's like, but one position would be that yeah, anything can be a table. Therefore, anything is a table. And it's like,
Mm,
well, just because you can use anything as a table doesn't mean you can't make a distinction. You know what I mean? And my side is, well, you can make a distinction, and their side was because there's room to not make a distinction, there is no distinction. I'm like, well, if we can't agree on that, then what's the point? We're done
what's the
here. I
point of
think.
talking?
Yeah.
If you put a lamp table on a table, is it still a table? I don't know. All right. That was good. I think we move on to the next part of 11. So I think what we just discussed kind of leads into always look and always to look at things so as to see at the same time what kind of universe this is and what kind of use everything performs in it. So that goes back to that deeper principle you're talking about, Ruben. So I think what you've just said sort of follows this
Yeah.
perfectly. Because it starts
Yeah, I
small and
think
then
you're
goes all the way to like a universe scope.
Yeah,
which
more and
is
more. I know we
massive.
asked this question when we were reading the Republic. I'm more and more convinced that that form of reasoning is correct. That you can apply the macro to the micro and vice versa.
Yeah. All right, so let's move to the next part. So, and what value everything has with reference to the whole, and what with reference to man, who is a citizen of the highest city, of which all other cities are like families, what each thing is, and of what it is composed, and how long it is the nature of the thing to endure, which now makes an impression on me.
Do you think he's talking about like virtue there, like sort of fundamentals, I suppose, because like what value everything has with reference to the whole, and he's trying to say like where does it where would you evaluate it in the scheme of like the things that are important? So what part would it play in the whole, and like what's actually important?
Yeah, is he saying now that you've identified what it is, identify how it relates to the whole, and assign a value to it? Is that what kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, I think so.
So, is that basically a way of saying don't make mountains out of molehills?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when he says how long in the nature of things will it last.
Yeah.
I mean, and you could boil that down to how we were talking about impressions. Like something happens and it makes an impression on you. How long is that impression going to last? And if you know that it's not going to be a long time, then you just write it out.
Yeah.
I
Like
love
that
the
the
idea of
whole
impressions.
what's that?
I love the idea of impressions. It is such a magnificent tool for what's the right word for mental stamina.
Hmm.
Great tool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've read in books on psychology in very passing, in a very limited sort of manner, where they have that idea of allowing yourself to think something, but not at effect, like just allow a thought to pass. That's a similar idea.
Mm. Yeah. I've heard it like the first arrow hits, but you don't have to let the other ones hit you afterwards. I've
Yeah.
heard it described like that too, but I think the Stoics would say you don't even have to let the first arrow hit you.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I've found that really helpful to help coach my children as well when they get anxious about something or they get hurt feelings from something. That's been a good tool to sort of talk about. Like if someone said something mean to them, it's like if they'd said that to you in Korean, would that have hurt your feelings?
Yeah.
You know, and they're like, no. I'm like, so it's your understanding of the words that hurt you. It's not the words themselves. And so you can choose to just let that go past you and not hit you by, thinking about it rationally and thinking, well, I'm not going to accept that. I'm not going to accept that to hurt me. And it takes practice and it doesn't instantly stop the pain, but it helps them sort of visualize there's a different choice of reaction. It doesn't just have to be cause and effect. It can be cause, I can allow this effect or I can choose a different effect. And I think just knowing that there's a chance that you can have a different effect is really helpful for them. And it's, again, you explain to them you won't get this right every time, but if you only get it right 1 out of 3 times, hey, that's great. That's a lot of times that you won't get hurt feelings or offended that otherwise would have.
I think
Yeah.
if you're able to build anyone to sort of think about having that step before offense happens, to just pause and really think about it for a minute, is going to be valuable for anybody, right?
Yeah. Particularly these days. Gosh.
Yeah, what a difference that would make to our society.
I know. Cool. What does it mean? Who is a citizen of the highest city? What does that stuff mean? What does yours say? Something a bit more helpful, Ruben?
No, a man is an inhabitant of the highest city. I think what he's making reference to is that man is a rational animal. So we have the faculty of rationality, which is the highest form of being, kind of
But
thing.
then that all
you're a
other
member of,
beings are also brothers.
what's that?
Doesn't it kind of allude to that all other beings, all other cities are like families?
But I think he's talking about like humans versus animals, because we're a rational animal versus somebody,
Okay.
someone who just
Yeah, so
reacts.
we're a higher order being, I suppose you could say, than other things. But I
Right.
don't know. I could be wrong.
Well, I think that's what he's saying, because then he sort of goes on to say, hence on every other occasion a man should say, this comes from God. And I think it's kind of like linking that you are a higher order being, and that that's intentional as a as a child of God, or for them the gods, or whatever it may well be, and their belief in that sort of thread of destiny and all that sort of business. The fates weaving what you should be doing, according to the gods, right? So,
But it's
so I think
also saying one who knows not, however, is accordance to his nature. So is he talking about other men who haven't left the cave, so to speak?
that's exactly right.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's just talked about identifying things and essentially similar to what we were saying, going through a process of understanding the impression and all that sort of stuff. There are people, and we've all met them, who don't do that. They are just, I mean, if you just react unthinkingly to every piece of input, if you're not employing your faculties of reason, what does that make you? It makes you closer. I think it makes you closer to an animal. Makes you, you've got no control over yourself, no self-control. I mean, dial it back to a 2-year-old, you know what I mean? Or a 3-year-old, like they just react.
Well, and I think the thing is, he starts talking here about and for this reason I behave to him according to the natural law of fellowship, but with benevolence and justice, because I know I've come out of the cave and I know they haven't. So I'm going to sort of give them, I suppose, a little bit more not credit, a little
Grace.
bit more leeway. Grace is a perfect word for it, right?
Yeah.
Because I know that I have, maybe achieved a better understanding, and so I'm going to give them that grace because I know they haven't come out of the cave yet.
Just again, how mind blowing is it that an emperor is thinking this way?
Yeah,
That's incredible. Hats off to this guy, man. Big respect.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
I've just finished my beer.
Tragedy.
It's a bit sad. We still have like a little bit to go, but that's all right. I'll stop there. It is a school night after all.
Well, so if you want to pause, I'm happy to grab another drink.
Oh, well, it is in accordance with my nature to want another drink. So,
Are you going to apply your rationality to it?
I will have a ration of beer. Yeah, how's that?
And
Skull drinker.
And also, the past is gone, and the future is unpredictable. So, I mean,
Presently, there is no beer. So, I will fix that. All right, let's pause, grab drinks. We'll be right back.
Go for it.
And we are back, and I have not filled this. It's only half full, as the camera shows.
no, he applied his reason, his faculty of reason.
It's a school night. I do have to get up for work, so I don't want to be waking up all dusty. But spent a long time in the garden today. I was mowing and washing cars, and there's nothing better for being in the sun all day than having a beer.
That is true.
It's science. All right, I reckon we can jump on to 12. I thought 11 would take a while, and it did take a little bit of time, but I'm proud of what we did there. I think we got through that one well. All right, 12. If you work at what is before you, following the right reason seriously, vigorously, calmly, without allowing anything else to distract you, but keeping your divine part pure, as if you should be bound to give it back immediately. If you hold to this, expecting nothing, fearing nothing, but satisfied with your present activity according to nature, and with heroic truth in every word and sound which you utter, you will live happily. And there is no man who is able to prevent this. Well, as a dude with ADHD, damn. I don't think I ever do one thing focusing on that one thing only. I always have music going in my ears or podcasts, 10,000 different tabs open on my screen.
I can't live like that, Tim. It's I'm very much a man of singular focus. More than one thing, and nothing happens.
If I try to do one thing, nothing happens.
Yeah.
That's the difference, I think. If I sit there and try to... Like, if I was just trying to work on one Excel file with no music on, no other windows open, I would be thinking about cars and what I'm going to do next weekend and why is the wall that colour and why are the lights this bright. I would be thinking about everything except I'm meant to be working on. But because I have the music and 2 or 3 things, it kind of puts me in a productive distraction mode. That whatever I get distracted by is still productive. So, I don't know. It's, yeah. But I get the point. That's probably a discipline I need to work on. It's just be still and focus on one thing. In fact, there is one thing I do that with, and that is my journaling. When I journal, I don't have music on, I don't have anything else. It's just, that's the task I'm doing. And strangely, I do feel really good when I do that. So, yeah.
That's probably the right time to do it anyway, because like in some ways, because like in this passage, they're really talking about you doing this in respect to like reasoning and thinking about things. And so like journaling, it's time for reflection, right? So in some ways, that's exactly what you're doing, is kind of going back and like almost evaluating some of that sort of thought process calmly and maybe more rationally, and making some comments about what's happened in that day. So maybe that's your way of doing that, mate.
Maybe. I mean, I still get distracted journaling. I think if you read my journal, it wouldn't be structured like Marcus's. It's the paragraph probably has 6 different subjects in it, which is not good writing.
Mate, if you're just comparing your journaling to Marcus, you might be like just kind of like setting the standards a little higher, you know?
True. This is true. I do find it helpful though.
I've never actually tried to do the journaling thing. It's something I wouldn't mind having a crack at, but I have a feeling it'd be one of those things that I'd be doing at the end of the day when I'm already tired, and it just I think I'd find it hard to prioritize and get that happening.
If it's worth doing, it's worth doing badly.
Yep. Do you know when I find it most helpful is when I don't want to do something? So if I'm at work or wherever, but like I have used this at work before, if I'm at work and I'm sitting there and I just can't get in the zone to get done what I need to get done, I find because my journal's on my tablet thing, if I recognize I'm not being productive, I push the keyboard away, I get my notepad out, and I ask myself, why am I finding this hard? and like literally like, why are you finding it hard to focus? What are you thinking about? And then I write down what I'm thinking about. That usually leads to a list of things I need to do, and then I've got them written down, so then I can go and tell myself, okay, you understand the problem now, you have a plan to fix it, you can't fix it because you're at work. What time this week can you fix it? I put a time on it. I then put that time into my phone as an event, and then I know, okay, that's under control. Now can you get some work done, please? It only takes me like 5 minutes. And then sometimes I'll do that, go to work, and I still don't want to work, so I'll do it again. And I'll find there was another thing that was in the back of my mind that I couldn't quite articulate that comes out. And sometimes it's taken me like 20 minutes to get down everything that I need to just sort of stop being distracted, so then I can get my stuff done. And if I didn't have that, I don't think, like, I'd rather do, if I'm there for 8 hours and I journal for 20 minutes, let's say half an hour, 7.5 hours of productivity is better than 8 hours of distracted.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
So I'd rather just journal it and get it out, so then I've got a plan, I can move forward. But if I didn't have that method, 10 years ago I didn't have that method, so 10 years ago I would have days that were pretty crap for productivity.
Yeah.
So I've found it helpful. But it's weird. Because you're having a dialogue with yourself.
Well, I think you're just kind of like removing wherever you've got to hide. You know what I mean? You're removing that, that obstacle. So makes sense.
It's kind of like talking to yourself like a parent does to a child. Like, why are you doing this? What's the matter? What are you thinking about? Like, you just hammer yourself. What's going on here? And yeah, it's a weird way to journal. It's certainly not something that I've learnt from reading how someone else does it. It's just something I started doing, and I was like, this is freaking good. Helps me figure out what's going on.
I think a lot of people do that, but they do it without the journal. That they might call that self-talk or something like that. It's people having a chat to themselves.
Yeah. I recommend giving it a go.
Yeah.
If you're in a flat spot, it helps.
Yep.
All right, well, let's get back to the text. So, I like the keeping your divine part pure, as if you should be bound to give it back. That's kind of nice.
Yeah, it's just like I think really with that whole passage is just kind of like trying to set up the way he wants to approach this thing with such a high and clear standard and respect probably for truth and justice, much in the same way we were looking at in the Republic as well, right? Again, your favorite thing about according to nature is popping back up in there as well. So it's just kind of, if you're doing that, then then you're operating in step with nature. So this is why you've got to be happy about this approach, right? It's got to be in alignment with that divine part of you, because what could be better than trying to pursue truth and justice in what you do, if you're holding yourself to that like as a pure way of operating.
Yes. I love the reference to heroic truth in every word and sound. That I find interesting. Sometimes I find myself surrounded by people that are trying to project a positivity by basically laughing all the time.
Yeah.
And I just don't do it. Like, I'm not going to sit there and fake laugh, because it's a lie. And I think he's like drilled down on this, because he's saying, tell truth in every word and sound which you utter. And I think that's a really important and interesting distinction. really getting down to the detail. Like,
Yeah, well, communication goes beyond the words that you use.
yeah, but it feels like this is like a what's the right way of saying this? It's like he's having a go here at sophistry. Like, a sophist would go, oh, well, I didn't say anything that wasn't true. I didn't say any words that weren't true. But that doesn't mean I didn't make sounds to indicate something that wasn't true. It feels like
or
there
even
was a direct sledge of sophistry here.
like just like quietly rolling your eyes at something, right? Like, I had somebody in a meeting at work last week who forgot they were on Zoom. They forgot their camera was on, and while someone was talking, like they were,
Oh, that's so funny. Whoops, the daisy.
yeah. So they like quiet conversation after the meeting.
That went down
Did
like a
you
bag
not
of egg.
agree with that discussion?
Oh, that's funny. No, I like that. That's a good distinction. It also shows like you will live happily.
Mm.
At church today, they talked a bit about joy, and that the biblical word joy doesn't mean like fleeting happiness. That it's a different sort of joy. And I think this is a similar sort of idea that he's trying to discuss here. Is that there's a happiness that comes about that if you conduct yourself properly and in the truth, then that the satisfaction that comes with the knowledge that you have strived for virtue and you're trying to do the right thing can't be taken away.
Mm.
It's interesting. I've heard that message twice in two different ways today.
Is it possibly a question of conscience?
Yeah.
Because when he's referring to pure divinity, like the divine path, and expecting nothing, shirking nothing, that to me is describing somebody that goes about their work knowing that they've done what they're supposed to do to the best of their ability. And I think anyone that does that, whether it fails or not, is irrelevant because they've done what they had to do and then it's out of their hands. So it's somebody who's at peace with their conscience.
I think you're absolutely right, Rubes. It's like the start of the Republic when you're talking to Socrates is talking to Cephalus, the old man,
Yeah.
and he's saying how his friends can't sleep at night because they think about all the wrongs they've done through their lifetime, all the backs they've stabbed, the lies they've told, and how he sleeps like a baby because he lived a good life, he made a little bit of money, but he didn't shaft anyone on the way through, and he's got that clear conscience. He's more in keeping with nature, and as a consequence, he sleeps well at night. He has the natural sleep of somebody with a clear conscience.
Yeah. I mean, surely that's a type of joy.
Absolutely.
For sure. All right, it's getting late. I reckon we just do 13 and then call it because 13 looks awesome. So let's do it. Just as physicians always have their instruments and knives ready for cases which suddenly require their skill, so you should have principles ready for understanding things divine and human, and for doing everything, even the smallest, with a recollection of the bond which unites the divine and human to one another. For you will neither do anything well which pertains to man without at the same time having a reference to things divine, nor the other way around. Nice.
Yeah, I like that.
That reminds me of that Bible verse where it says, essentially, always be ready to give I don't want to misquote it. It's like the reason for why you have your faith. What's that Bible verse?
Yeah, Paul says it. I don't know where he says it.
Yeah. I'm gonna use the Bible gateway known as Google. Be ready to give an answer. 1 Peter. Here you go. 1 Peter 3:15. Always be ready to give an explanation to anyone who asks you for a reason for your hope. Similar idea. You should have principles ready for understanding things divine and human, and for doing everything, even the smallest, with a recollection of the bond which unites the divine and human to one another.
Well, interestingly, my book uses the word doctrines. So you'd have your doctrines ready for recognition of the divine and the human.
Interesting. That comes back to what you're talking about before, Ruben, with your conversations, how it goes deeper.
Yeah.
I think that this just underlines and exclamation marks that. Yes, this is the way.
Yeah, know what you believe, but also know why you believe it.
Yeah.
That way you're not just operating off sense data. You're not just responding to your emotions.
This last part is a controversial statement these days, for you will neither do anything well which pertains to man without at the same time having a reference to things divine, nor the other way around.
Yeah. Well, what you could probably link it back to nature if you don't want to have divine in there anyway. But
to him, it's the same thing, I suppose. Nature, your nature is a subject of divinity.
Yeah, because it's all connected. But I think it's it's just pulling his way of operating up to the highest, holding himself to account to the highest standard, which is the divine, right? So, yeah, pretty neat.
Very good.
Nice way.
Well, gents, it is almost 10 p.m. where we live on a Sunday evening. We all have families, we all have jobs, so I think it's a good place to wrap it up. To those listening, thank you for listening. It's also the 15th of December at the time of this recording. This is probably our last recording before Christmas. So have a Merry Christmas, and we will be back in the new year. And remember, the Republic wasn't built in a day, and neither are middle-aged men, although those days are getting shorter and faster as every year goes on. So thanks for joining me tonight, guys. Catch you next time.
Thanks, guys. Yep.